Hi creatives, and welcome back to Agency Academy. My name is Malin, and if you're new here, welcome, or otherwise welcome back. Here on the channel we talk about how to build a business that works for you so you have more freedom to create and actually do the things that you love doing day to day. Today we're going to talk about a really popular topic, which is how to create your own courses on Skillshare to make passive income. And passive income just means that you're creating something once and then you're getting money from that passively without having to put more effort in every time. And if you're really curious about passive income after you've watched this video, you can also go check out our full guide to passive income that I created a bit before, and I'll put it up here and I'll put it down in the link as well. On Skillshare, you're actually able to make passive income in two different ways. The first one is when people watch your classes, you get paid depending on how much they watch, basically. And the second one is if you refer someone. So let's say, for example, I recommend that you guys use Skillshare because I think it's a great platform, and I put my link down in the description, which it is. Then if you use that link to sign up and you actually start using Skillshare as a paying member, then I get a kickback from that. So that works the same way for you guys. So why should you choose Skillshare over other teaching platforms? I've tried a couple different ones, and for me, the biggest decision to use Skillshare was that they have a big built-in network. So for me, I've always found marketing to be kind of the most, least favorite part of running a business. Like, I really like the actual designing and creative process. I don't even mind the accounting, and as you know, I love project management, but I just don't love marketing. And so when we had our courses on other platforms like Teachable, for example, it meant that we had to drive all the traffic there. So there is a bit of a built-in network in a lot of these platforms, but because you're selling your course as a one-off purchase that people have to make a decision for, on these other platforms, it's harder to actually get people to buy something. On Skillshare, I used to tell people it works a little bit like Netflix. So if you have a subscription to Netflix, it's not that much of a difficult decision to start trying to watch a movie, because if you don't like it, you can just move ahead and start another movie. You don't actually have to pay for each individual movie or series. And it's the same thing on Skillshare. So people already have a subscription. They're likely to go check out your course and watch your course for a little bit at least, even if they're not quite sure. And that means that you get exposed to a lot more people. And if your courses are good, which of course they're going to be great, that means you're keeping those people and they're watching for a long time. And so I think it's one of those platforms that you just can start growing and building and get paid from day one, basically. Lastly, I also like Skillshare because there's a quite established format of what a good Skillshare course looks like. So just like if you think about other platforms like YouTube, or if you think about how Instagram compares to LinkedIn, there's different formats and different ways that we interact on those platforms. And if you look at a lot of the high performing classes in Skillshare, a lot of them have a kind of a similar format. And we're going to start going into that format a little bit today, and that helps us create something that the people who are on the platform are going to like. So now let's dig into how Skillshare works and what to think about before you create your course. So the first thing to know about Skillshare are kind of the parameters of what you have to know before you create a course. And the first one is that a course has to be at least 10 minutes long, and you can't be too promotional. So when you're creating a course, you're going to be building it up in chapters. And there's always an introductory video, a couple different chapters that are going to be showing someone how to do a specific thing, like how to illustrate flowers or how to build out their website or something like that. And then the last video is usually talking about the class project, maybe a few thank you notes. The class project for a Skillshare class is part of the way that Skillshare works. So they want it to be really actionable the way that people teach on the platform, which means that every Skillshare course has a class project. And the class project is just something actionable that the viewers or the students are doing. So it could be creating your own design, or maybe doing an illustration that you're showing, or something that is relating to the course that you're teaching. So now I thought we would go through a little bit about what the different types of videos, the introduction, the main chapters, and the end video typically should contain, so that when you're planning out your course, you know what to actually create. So for the introduction video, it's usually something between 30 seconds and 2 minutes. That's what I've been seeing from a lot of the successful courses, because it's really just to give us a flavor of what the course actually includes. Typically what happens is you have someone who says hi, introduces the course and the topic, and then gives a brief background about themselves. This is kind of for us to establish why you're the person teaching the course. So it could be, hi, I'm an illustrator and I've been working on this for 5 years, designing illustrations about florals that are used in print and illustration for editorial purposes, for example. And as you're doing this, you often show examples of the work that you've done to give credibility to your expertise as a teacher. Once you've done this, you'll want to dig into the actual content of the course. Basically give what you're going to learn and why you should take the course and why you are excited about teaching it. You'll introduce the class project, and then you'll say a few words about how excited you are to get started or something like that. So of course you can create your intro as you like, but that's kind of the building blocks that I've seen a lot of the successful courses do, and this is the formula that I've been using to create my own Skillshare courses. For the main chapters, I think the biggest feedback that I've always got is that people really like when you have a lot of actionable examples and tips. So if you're talking about a topic, can you bring in examples from your own business or examples from other businesses to back up what you're saying? Give examples of how this relates to real life. And if you have examples of like great resources that someone could use, and that's something that is also brought up a lot in comments and questions and discussions. Oh, I saw that you used this tool, where can I find that? Or this website was really interesting for stock images, where can I find that? So I think it's really good to be as helpful as possible to introduce these students who are super information hungry into a lot of actionable tips and resources. When it comes to the length of the video, I think make it however long you feel is useful to the actual content that you're creating. But typically what you see is that each video is probably somewhere between a few minutes and maybe up to 20 minutes. But these chapters are often sort of short and sweet. So a lot of the creators actually break it up into a lot of sub videos. So instead of having like one long video on the topic, you're breaking it up into, let's say, sketching phase of a logo, then we're going into Adobe Illustrator, then we're putting it on a mock-up, then we're presenting it to clients. So breaking it up into topics that feel like the person who's watching understands the logic of the course. And if, let's say, they're already great at putting things on mock-ups, they can skip that one and go on to the next one. So having really clear structure with your course and breaking it up into chunks that are not too big to watch all in one time. For this last chapter of your course, the one where you talk about your class project and say thank you, I think it can be a really good idea to show yourself doing the class project, so like completing the assignment, because this kind of shows exactly what you're looking for, what you are referring to about the class project, and it makes it easier for people to publish their own when they see that there's already one there in the project section, so they don't feel like they have to be the first one to publish something. Great, so now you've decided you're going to make a Skillshare course. Well, where do you actually start? So the first thing you want to do is to choose the right topic, and this is actually more important than you think. Not only is it important because it builds your brand and your expertise and it should be something you're passionate about, but the topic that you pick and how popular that is on the platform is really going to help you make more money and be more popular as a course creator. So what I suggest you do is you can make a list of ideas and topics that you might want to create something on. So let's say you want to do something on branding or logo design. Then you go to Skillshare and you search the courses that are already there. And what you'll want to look out for is which courses and which topics are really popular and how are they phrasing their course names, because this is part of the Skillshare SEO, if you will. And look for courses and topics where there's a lot of students, but not all of the courses are really high quality. So if you can find a topic where even kind of low production videos are having a lot of students, that's a good sign that people really like that topic. So once you picked your topic, the next step is to create your course outline. And it's really important to try to put yourself in the shoes of your students and think about, if I'm learning this for the first time, what's like a logical structure to break this into? And this comes back to those chapters that we mentioned before. You want to think about going in a way where you're introducing people to a topic in bite-sized chunks that feel manageable, and also making it easy for people to navigate to the section that is most relevant to them if maybe they're brushing up on a subject. The way I typically do this is I start writing down the structure that I think is logical, and as I'm doing that, I always come up with ideas for, oh, actually this should have come first, or this should be added here. And then you can start to refine it and add bullet points under each chapter for what you would like to teach. Let's say you're teaching a course about illustration. Then you might want to talk about what materials you use, where to find reference images, how to actually create the layout of your illustration, and then finally how to create it, maybe scan it, something like that. So try to think about all the different steps that you go through in your creative process and how that can be translated into chapters of a course. As we already spoke about, try to include lots of examples and walkthroughs. And here's also where you're going to have to think about how you want to appear in your course. Some course creators, they do a lot of talking heads, so just like we're sitting right now, where it's basically like a background and a person and you're just teaching a topic. For a lot of things where it comes down to something artistic or creative, you might want to do a little bit more of a mix where you're also bringing in, let's say, screen recordings, or maybe a camera that's looking at your iPad at the same time as you're working, so that people can see your creative process and not just you talking. I think it's good to always have a little bit of your face, at least at the beginning of each video, or at the absolute very least in the introduction video. This will set the tone for who you are and why people should trust you and like to learn from you. If you are, let's say, using a PowerPoint presentation that you are talking people through, make sure you're really working on your slides or your presentation so that it's constantly engaging, because it's always going to be more easy to keep people watching if you're designing something actively or talking like this as a human instead of just looking at like a static picture. So do keep that in mind when you're creating a course as well. I think it's also a good idea to plan out B-roll at this stage. So what I mean by B-roll is basically the main footage is when you're teaching something, and then B-roll is things you can overlay. So let's say right now that I'm talking, I might be referring to sketching, and then it might be me filming myself sketching so that I can overlay that as I'm talking. So this is just a way to mix up the footage, it keeps people interested, and it's a way to also back up what you're saying in a more interesting way. So once you have your course outline, it's time for filming. And when it comes to filming, there's only really a couple things that you want to keep in mind. I don't think you need super fancy equipment or something that is going to cost you a lot of money, especially in the beginning. So much is about how we use our equipment. And I think that buying something very expensive, we then have to learn it in order for us to use it. So if you have a phone that has a decent camera on it, you can probably get away with that for creating your course. Just make sure that you're filming in a landscape and not a portrait mode. The other part is the audio quality and lighting, because lighting I found is just as important as the camera quality, because if we have poor lighting, we actually lower the video quality as well. It tends to get a lot grainier and it's just harder to work with. So in this case, where I'm sitting right now, I actually have two studio lights, which are kind of like soft boxes that are just lighting me up. So even though it's bright out, I don't want to have to rely on that if, let's say, I keep filming into the time when the sun goes down. So therefore, you can control your lighting. But if you don't want to invest in lighting, you can just make sure that you're filming on a day when it's bright and sunny outside. When it comes to background, when you're filming like this, I think that having something that is representing what you do and who you are. So in my case, I have like some design books and a couple different things that are things I would keep in my office. But for you, it might look different. The important thing is just to not make it so overwhelming or distracting that it becomes difficult to hear what you are saying as a person. The important thing is you teaching, not the background. When you're creating a course, I think it's always a really good idea to do a couple of test filming sessions before you even start actually trying to record the stuff that you're going to be publishing. Because being comfortable in front of the camera is something that definitely comes with practice and time and just testing it out. I remember when I started doing YouTube, some of my videos were super excited and some of my videos were a little bit too somber. And so trying to find your own voice and what represents you and what fits the Skillshare format, I think it's just good to give it a test and then look back at yourself and try to analyze, not criticizing, but just thinking, is this interesting? Is it engaging? Am I keeping on topic? And then once you have done that and analyzed a little bit about what you typically do when you're filming, then you can go and film your actual footage and you'll feel a bit more comfortable. Next step is to edit your course and the footage that you filmed. And here I think it's important to try to think about making it continuously interesting to watch and to listen. So if, let's say, you are doing one step for quite a long time or you're talking for quite a long time to camera, it's really good to do two things. The first one is to add in that B-roll that we talked about, which is basically just footage of you doing the things you're talking about. The second one is to add little informational in between screens. And you might have seen that I actually do that on this video as well. So this can be as simple as just like a slide with a colored background and some text on it that introduces the topic. It could be animated text, it could be GIFs you've created in Procreate. Basically anything you want, as long as it feels like it's on your brand or it's working with your brand. I think it 100% pays off to put a lot of extra little effort into your editing, where let's say, for example, you are filming and you're sitting like this, and then you're saying something that you want to cut out, and then the next time you start, you sit over here. That's going to look super jarring when you do a cut. And so instead of doing that, you can use these techniques of putting in, let's say, a B-roll over that is going to smooth that transition. Or you can put an interesting example that you're talking about on the screen. So try to pay extra attention to where maybe it feels awkward after you've edited. Maybe show it to someone that you trust, someone that will give you honest feedback, but maybe still is nice to you. And that you feel comfortable so that they can give feedback on, in this area it felt a little bit slow, or in this area I was a little confused, or this felt quite jarring. And then you can go back and re-edit. And so I say always create a rough cut and then go back and add those nice finishing details that makes it feel super professional. I use Adobe Premiere Pro, which is part of the Creative Suite. So if you already have Adobe Creative Cloud, then you'll be able to use that tool as well. Speaking of little touches, some other things that I can do as recommendations are a lot of creators put music underneath their introductory video, but don't actually put it for the rest of the chapters, just to keep it so that it doesn't get distracting from the rest of the content. It makes the first video feel a bit more like a promo, which is good. And I also like to put a little bit of this music when you're introducing the beginning of each video. So at the beginning of each video, I like to have a little bit of a starting screen that introduces the topic, and then I put this music fading out as we're sort of getting into the video. So little touches like this are something that you can start to implement consistently, and it will be something that you can use as a template for all your future videos. So the sort of last step is to upload and launch your course. And what you have to do is you need to have a Skillshare subscription, and you need to go to the teacher section. And here you're able to upload all your different chapters, and you can set a custom thumbnail for your introduction, which is also going to be the thumbnail that comes up for your whole video or for your whole course. And so this is something I like to put a little bit of extra effort into. I suggest having a look at how other people in your niche are creating their thumbnails. Some people just have a very sort of like straightforward pictures of the creator or the artwork, but typically you want to see something about what you're learning. So if the topic is logo design, then something about maybe me working on a logo, or showing a mood board for a logo or something like that is going to be enticing for the people who are going to be students. You will also be writing a description of the course and a little bit about the class project with instructions. And you do have an option to attach files. So let's say you've created a workbook or maybe a list of helpful articles that you think are useful or something like that that you want to share with your students, you can upload that as well. With Skillshare, once you've published your course, you can never unpublish your course, but you can go in and edit it. So I suggest that you create it as well as you feel like you can at the moment. And then if you want to go and update the description or the titles of the videos or something like that, you can always go and do that afterwards. You'll also fill in a little bit about the type of course that you created and the categories that it falls into. So it's easier for someone to find it. And this again comes into the kind of SEO perspective. And this is again stuff you can edit. So if you notice that all of your courses that are on one topic are doing really well and the ones on another one are not doing as well, let's say one is business and one is education, but it could fall into either category, then you can also go back and tweak that afterwards. And that has helped me actually with a few of my videos that weren't performing as well. And when I changed the classification of them to something that was just as accurate, but just a different way of classifying it, they did a lot better. So keep on top of these things and have a peek as you're creating. The very last step, which is actually, dare I say, optional, is marketing. I actually do basically no marketing for my Skillshare courses, and I still get a decent income from them every month, just from that internal SEO. But of course, if you have a newsletter, if you have social media profiles that you actually have a lot of people engaging with, start telling people about the course that you created. And this introductory video that you made as the first chapter, you can use that as a promo. And I think that's a great way where, let's say you want to embed it on your website for people to see that you've done this course. They can kind of get a teaser video and then you can direct them on to Skillshare. I really hope this was helpful. I know that was a lot of information all at once, but I hope it gave you a good foundation and a lot of things to think about when you're creating your very first Skillshare course. I would love to know the ideas and topics that you have in mind. So if you're thinking about creating a course, maybe drop a comment down below and let me know what you're thinking about. Or if you have a question, let me know. If you liked the video, make sure to like it and subscribe if you want more from us. And you can hit the notification bell to get notified when we publish something new. Thank you so much for watching and good luck with your course creation.